And we're really excited today to be able to learn more about this immersive learning from John, the Chief Technical Officer at ELB Learning, and Maxwell, the Content Developer for Global Learning and Development at Johnson & Johnson Vision. So they're here today to delve into this area of immersive and experiential learning. And you're going to get to see firsthand why it works, how easy it can be to create, and how Johnson & Johnson Vision has put it into practice. So to start us off, I will pass it over to you, John. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Christy. Today, we are going to talk about immersive learning, but I want to take a step back first and look at traditional e-learning. Put myself on camera there. Early web-based learning that needed to be interactive, it was all created by hand, if you will, right? So it's either written in HTML or Flash or something like that, that it had to have a developer at that time, right? So subject matter experts had to get the materials written out and provided to someone who would literally code the pages and interactions that became interactive courses that students would take. So because of this, early e-learning was either very expensive or just wasn't that good, and there just wasn't a lot of it originally. Your traditional non-interactive learning was PowerPoints and PDFs, which sadly it still kind of is today. But then we had rapid e-learning authoring tools, right? So really started with Lectora, and then Captivate, and then Articulate, right? So, and this, we needed to provide that interactivity and engagement, and it started in the late 90s and early 2000s, and they led that way with rapid authoring. And then we all were able to get courses that were engaging and they were easy to create. And there was an explosion of e-learning authoring. Well, VR started in the same way, or VR or immersive learning. It started in the same way. Everything had to be created by hand, except this time the tools were Unity and Unreal. And you needed to have 3D designers on staff. And you also needed to have headsets for everyone who was going to take the content. So as you can imagine, much like early traditional training, it really slowed the adoption of immersive training, and it left it more to niche applications or very expensive kind of things. We are now undergoing a huge change in immersive learning. Tools like Scenario VR are available on the market today, and they allow you to create interactive VR content at a user level. So no longer do you need to have programmers on staff to create your content. You can use consumer level 360 cameras to create 360 images and videos for your virtual scenes and place those users into, or you can actually even use stock images if those are able to suit your needs. So depending on what you're simulating, creating content for VR can now be as easy as putting together a PowerPoint with WYSIWYG interfaces that let you move, position, and size things in the virtual world however you want. Interactivity, including things like drag and drop, part assembly, and motion paths, they can all be created using a comfortable, familiar interface that doesn't require any programming. And you can build in variables and conditional branching to really gamify and follow the story you want to tell. So great. Sounds easy. I want to get into it. How do we get started with anything? Well, we generally Google it, right? So what happens when we Google it? All right, how to get started with VR training. Wow, wait a minute. Let's see. Custom simulations, too expensive. Enterprise guide to scaling. We're just getting started out. Wait, let's try AI, right? So if I ask AI the same question, what do we get? All right, I got to go through and select VR hardware, creating content, software development, UI design. This seems so complicated, right? It really brought up more questions than we even started with, right? So I know that I have these images and videos. What kind of videos and images do I need? We know we kind of need a camera to film something, but what kind of camera do I use? How do I build it? How do I view it? How am I going to distribute it? How do I get things out to people? And then maybe I could see some examples of how we use it would help me get along. Good news is these are all the questions we're going to answer in today's webinar. So let's start with those images and videos. What kind of images and videos do you need to start with? And the answer here is something called equirectangular images and video. So the word itself may not be familiar, but the format as we see, something we see every time we look at a flat map of the round Earth. So all those features at the top and the bottom of the map are stretched because they resolve into a single point at the top and bottom of the globe. Towards the center of the image, features are less distorted because they're, in the left and right images are meant to wrap together. The files themselves are actually just JPEG files for the images and MP4 files for the video. So the formats are very familiar. It's just the projection that is equirectangular in this stretched projection. So here's an example of an equirectangular image of a road, right? The camera is positioned right here in the center of the road on the stripe, and you're looking out towards the side. And so that is the equirectangular projection of that image. But when you put that into a tool like Scenario VR, you get this. You get this. It looks fine. It wraps it around the sphere. So there's a virtual sphere that it's wrapped around, and you can see it. The only question is why there's no passing allowed on this road, because it looks like a pretty long straight road to me, and we don't have a dotted line. All right, so that's great. So now what kind of camera do I need to take those kinds of photos, right? It's a very different kind of photo, not something you normally take with your phone. So what do you use? The good news is you do not need this camera. This was actually a camera rig created for a first-person VR movie called Agent Emerson. And it was 24 4K cameras and all mounted on this poor guy's head. And he had to walk around and act like that. And even worse, probably somebody had to look at him and pretend he wasn't wearing that while they were acting. So the cameras we use are just standard consumer 360 cameras. And there are a lot of options on the market for these consumer cameras. We've got a few pictured here. The cameras range from around $400 to $800, and they actually do very well for creating immersive learning. So really, after you go above $800, the next range starts around $3,000, and it doesn't actually provide you with a big difference that you can use. So these days, I'm doing a lot of my filming with the Insta360 RS1H, but that recommendation could change at any time as the technology moves fast. And I often get the question, can you recommend a camera? And the answer is absolutely. I've actually done a camera comparison, complete with side-by-side photos and videos, so you can judge for yourself. I've tried to do it in, outdoor, indoor, low light, poor lighting conditions, things like that, just so you can see the advantages and disadvantages of each camera. You can use this QR code or that link right there. It'll take you to the comparison, and you can judge for yourself and see what works for you. Okay, let's move on to filming. How do you film with these new cameras that are a little bit different? The filming is actually very similar to 2D video, but there are a few things you should take into account when you're filming immersive learning. First one, and very most important, is that everything is in the shot. And I mean, really, really, I mean directly above the camera, directly, but everything's in the shot. You cannot hide. So you actually need to plan ahead what to do with you as you're taking this. So in the photo here in this slide, I am behind that little pole there, and I had to really kind of suck it in a little bit to hide back there, but I was able to hide back there. The good news is that all 360 cameras come with a companion app for your phone, so you can get out of the way and snap in a picture, and the camera can be mounted on a stand right there. And with video, it's actually very simple to crop the beginning or end of the video such that you can use standard video editing tools. You don't need to use a specialized tool to edit a 360 video. Okay, next is we're talking about the roller coaster effect. And so everyone, including me, when they're going to film their first scene, they have the camera move through the scene. The thought is, of course, always, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to make a super realistic experience. I'm just going to walk that through. If I'm going to do an office walkthrough, maybe I'm going to walk it through and show everything in there. Sounds like a great idea. Don't do it. What you end up doing is making most people ill, even if they're just watching it in their browser on the web. Too much 3D movement can really mess with your head a little bit. What you get in that immersive thing is that your brain perceives the motion, but your inner ear does not perceive motion, and your stomach loses that fight. And so you don't want to put your learners through that. So you generally keep the camera still, video or images, and if you need to go to the other side of the room, you allow teleportation there. You put a little link there, they click on the link, and then you set the camera there, and then you film and do your film there on that side. Camera positioning. So it's very important. The camera's perspective is the user's perspective when they're immersed. And so, if you're having a mentor come in and talk to you, role play is a very common thing to do in immersive learning. You want that camera to be maybe 4 to 5 feet away and around eye level or just maybe slightly below eye level. If you put the camera laying down on a chair or something like that, or on a shorter desk, you get what we call the dog's eye view of everything, which is not what you're looking for. And the same can be if you put it too high, you get the omniscient in the clouds view. So You want to make sure that the camera is positioned correctly. One other thing that's important is the stitching zone. So the way a camera works is it has two lenses, one on either side. Each one takes about 210 degrees. And so because of that, it needs to be stitched together. You get these two bubble images here, and they are stitched together to create that equirectangular image. That works great. Things directly in front of you and behind you are perfectly aligned. Most areas, it's fine. It's just that little area around the 90 and 270 where when it stitches it together, it may not be perfect. It's usually pretty good, and today's cameras are better and software are better at it than it's been in the past. But you have that small area where there might be a small artifact or a little bit of fuzziness. You just don't want to make sure that the entirety of everything you do is in that 90 and 270 zone, because you may see something there that you don't want. Next is trapping your viewers, and I see this done all the time. Trapping the viewer doesn't really mean actually putting the camera inside a box and trapping the viewer inside a box, but it's really just putting them too close to something that's very large. That could create a claustrophobic reaction, and I am absolutely guilty of this one. So one of the scenarios I use all the time is an alarm scenario. Inside a factory floor, when I was simulating an alarm going off, and you had to handle the alarm, and as a part of that, you had to go up to a panel, and you got a row of buttons, and you could press all these different buttons. It's a great way to learn what button to press, but the problem is, I thought I'm going to make that so good and clear. I am just going to put that camera really close to it. Well, when you use it on the web, it actually looks okay, but if you actually do put on a VR headset, you are way too close to that wall, and it creates a bit of a problem. So you want to give it a little bit of room so that you're not too claustrophobic in there. The person can always zoom in if they need to zoom in on it. That's not a problem. Lastly, the last bit of advice is don't make your learner a wallflower. If you're standing silently outside the action, observing what's going on, you kind of lose that immersive feeling. You're just watching it happen. Make sure your user has a defined role in the scenario you're creating. I mean, you can even have your user play multiple roles in the same scenario to empathize with each side of the situation. This happens because of our history of creating traditional courseware. When you make a role play, you usually have two characters sitting next to each other, and you have speech bubbles or perhaps audio going back and forth. When you're in an immersive medium, don't show an interaction between two people. Make me one of the people in the interaction. Okay, next, we filmed it. We've got it ready. How do we build it? Great answer there. The answer is Scenario VR. So Scenario VR is a tool that allows you to create it almost like working with PowerPoint. And I'm going to go ahead and just bring it up here really quickly and just show you that running here. I don't have time to go through a whole lot of it, but I'm going to show you a very small example, just a few things in here, which kind of gives you a flavor. This is the actual editor itself. In here, we have two 360 scenes. Now, one thing you'll note is these 360 scenes were not actually done with a camera. They are created via AI. So one of your options for creating a scene, when you go through and create a scene, you can actually create a scene with AI, and you can actually just type in some text and it will create a 360 scene for you. It's great for prototyping or using, getting things generated really quickly, or opening scenes or ending scenes. Generally, if you have availability to get to whatever it is you're going to be doing your scenario on, you should probably film in there for that. But if not, you have this way to create these 360 scenes. This was created with the words "a large top floor office." I have the other one with rooftop garden. So in this, I just have a single link over here. I'm going to have this link take me. It is a image, and it has an action with it. That action is going to link to scene, which means it's going to go to this next scene. If I click on it, you just visually select which scene I want to link to. But I have an entire action palette of things I can do within Scenario VR. I can play, pause, or jump around on the timeline of the current scene. I can interact with other objects, showing them, hiding them, animating them in 3D space, panning the camera, which we do inside of here. I can interact with audio, video, and timers, play it, pause it, stop it, or so forth. I have variables, I have completion, I have web links and attachments, lots of things that I can do inside of here. But in this one, I really just have this one link, which links me to the other scene. I did put a timed event in here, and that timed event is if nothing happens in 2 seconds, I'm actually going to spin the camera over to link to let them know, and I'm also going to animate a little tooltip on side of that to let them know they need to go to the next scene. On that second scene, I have, again, an AI-generated scene here. It's a rooftop garden, and on there I have a video. That video, you'll notice it looks transparent. That is because it is a chroma keyed video. In that chroma key video, it is actually just a green screen video of me popping up in front of a camera. And I did this the most low-tech way possible. I actually tried to show that you can do it low-tech. You can actually do it professionally. So if you look at it, it is just me in front of a green sheet that I bought at the local Walmart. And I pop up and use it. But inside of the tool itself, I can chroma key that thing so I can have mentors come in. I literally just select a color that I want to be the chroma key color. I apply it, and then I say how many levels of that I want to be chroma keyed out, and then it puts it in. So a simple way to do chroma key. So when I put this together inside of here, and now let's go ahead and put it in run mode. So I have my scene, it switches over, it tells me, hey, go up to the rooftop. Okay, let's go to the rooftop. So when I switch to the rooftop, come in. Hello, I'm your virtual mentor. I'm here to help you along the way. I'll be pointing things out here and there during the simulation to help you get where you need to go. See you soon. I have an on done action on the video that brings me back to the scene, automatically brings me back as soon as that video is over. And note that it didn't run that because we had conditionally done the action not to pan to that and not to pop it up if we'd already been there. This is really created in about 5 minutes. I did it just before this. Actually, I had a much larger thing to show you, but I realized that it was going to be too long to show you for this presentation. But very simple to work with, gives you an idea of what it's like to work with Scenario VR. Okay, moving on. Great, we filmed it, we built it. How do we view it? Again, one thing that's not thought of, we think of VR, we think of immersive learning, we immediately go to, wow, headsets. Oh, I've got to get a headset for everybody, I've got to do it. Not true. You can just use interactive 360 video on the screen. It's viewing through the browser. You can create it to be viewed by the learner in any modern browser, and it's the same way we work with our current e-learning, right? So it's very familiar. You navigate by dragging the sphere around, selecting and clicking. It's not as immersive as it can be if you go in a headset, but it lets you dip your toes into immersive learning and give your users a different way to interact with your content. Next is delivering content on a mobile device, such as a smartphone or a tablet. The nice thing about that, it gives you a bit different immersive view. The content itself is intelligent, and it recognizes that it's on a device that has both a gyroscope on it, and it allows you to move it around. And when you move it around, you actually get a window to the world. So you can actually, look through there and see what's going on as you move your hands around. And so that's another way to move around. So it's kind of a bit more immersive than actually just using it on the web. Lastly is a VR headset. So yes, having the VR headset certainly gives you a fully immersive experience. And today's headsets, they don't require a laptop or a phone to view your content, and you get amazing quality visuals audio, and you are fully immersed. It does present some issues if you have a very physically diverse user base, and it definitely costs more to get the headsets. But you get a very big difference in empathy and realism that you really can't replicate in other environments. And you can actually even use the headset when the content is on your LMS. That is, it is something that is available. It does work that way. When the content is much like when it's on a phone, it knows to use the gyroscope on the phone. When it's on a headset, it knows it's on a headset. It puts a little icon there. You can click it, and you can go into full VR mode, even when the content is on your LMS. So why not have them all? The beauty with something like Scenario VR is it allows you to view your content, you can view the content on web browsers, iOS, Android, and every headset, basically it's every major headset that's out there. We have an application on that headset is out there, as well as browsers on those headsets. So how do we distribute that? Well, again, good news there. Scenario VR published as a SCORM of 1.2 in 2004, CMI5 and XAPI, and even better, it can publish directly to your Docebo instance with a few simple configurations. And again, I have a link here and a QR code if you want to look at it. But that just goes through how you can configure your Scenario VR instance to publish directly to your Docebo instance. So it makes it as simple as possible to get there. Okay, so now we're going to look at some examples of immersive learning. And for that, I am going to have Maxwell come on in and show us what he's doing there. Maxwell.
Thank you, John. My name is Maxwell Chiku. I am an instructional designer with Johnson & Johnson Vision. I've been with my company for 3 years now, and I support sales, education, professional ed and marketing needs. At Johnson & Johnson, our vision and priority is to deliver on eye health patients around the world. My team supports the development and distribution of cataract and refractive medical device content that is used for internal and external education for sales and personal surgeons. Today's presentation, I will talk about the immersive solution and immersive solution that we partnered with E-Learning Brothers on for our latest refractive surgery medical device. To do that, I'll provide a brief background on J&J VR and AR value proposition, and then I'll speak to our implementation strategy for this particular project. And then I will show a sneak peek of the immersive experience, just like some pictures, and share some important project value and lessons that we learn along the way. So we work with three key value propositions for VR and AR implementation. The first one is engagement. With that, it means that providing effective tools that increase engagement and also to drive efficiency with the tools that we provide. So we found that VR-enabled training allows anytime, anywhere learning with opportunity for unlimited repetitions. And then we can also get objective analytics out of that to enable personalized learning experiences for our learners. And then also it can reduce travel costs for various wet lab visits and things like that, because the VR immersive experience can serve as a bridge between the physical space and the virtual experience. So some of the evidence and the research, I will share a couple. There's a lot of research out there, and John mentioned a few, talking about the impact of immersive learning experience on engagement. And this is one that we have looked at. It's a study from Imperial College in London, where 24 residents with no prior experience with a hip replacement, particular surgery, were split into two different cohorts. 12 of those residents were trained using traditional methods, so like reading, lectures, videos, case observations, etc. And the other group were trained with also traditional, but then they added a 1 hour per week practice in VR for 5 weeks. And at the end, 83% of those who were trained, those surgeons were able to complete that particular procedure, whilst the traditional trained were not able to do that. Another study from UCLA also shows 230% better performance with VR when it comes to like assembling and doing things that involve like muscle memory and things like that. So with that, I'd like to talk about our immersive training example. We unveiled a breakthrough innovation in healthcare technology, the latest refractive surgery device, which offers a generational leap in corneal refractive technology with lots of benefits to surgeons, practices, and patients. So we decided to take a different approach to the launch training for this particular asset. Based on we always conduct a global gap analysis and then some findings from our internal pilots. And so we went with this VR approach for this in partnership with E-Learning Brothers. And during our needs analysis phase, part of that was the user needs consideration as well in terms of using VR. So some of the questions that we went with, we thought about was, will users be able to navigate the VR experience effectively? How will this training improve the existing content delivery types that we have? How will the content be tracked? Future improvement plans, and some other questions to be able to better create an action plan. And so we put together an action plan with three key components. The first one is the why, the second is the how, and then the deployment phase. So of course, in the why, we looked at why we needed to do the traditional training methods not as effective for this particular experience. And so we decided to build a web-based XR solution, and it will be deployed from our learning management system with an integration of an LRS API, so we can pull some more detailed data out into our learning record store. And then we also included evaluation methods, both quantitative and qualitative, for future improvements in the experience. So with ELB, we came up with some key features that this experience is a highly interactive learning experience, including videos, games, and simulations. It will be learner focused with instructional design strategies. 30 minutes, we had 4 language captions. So when this was built, we built 2 versions, one for our OUS and then one for US because of different needs. And then it was delivered through our learning management system, but it's also viewable, like John mentioned. It can be viewed on the web, so in any browser. It can also be viewed on mobile devices and, of course, in the VR headsets. And then we included some gamification layers to increase engagement. So this is what the schematic of the environment looks like. The learner comes in, and like John showed with that example, we have a host that pops up in the lobby and welcomes the learner and shows and provides a general guide of the environment, as well as an overview of the learning experience. And then we provide a guided learning experience. So the learner will move from the lobby, a hotspot will pop up on the right, and they will click on it and then go to the next room. So it's like you're moving from room to room. And this first one to call out, we have a rendering, a 3D rendering of the device. So and it has a lot of hotspots around, and the learner can click on different parts to experience the device. And then they can go from room to room. And in this big space right here is what we call the surgical center to the left, where we have some simulations of 2 procedures that the device does, so the learner can have some hands-on practice with that. Once they go through the whole experience, then the environment is open and they can go to different parts. By the first approach, we provide a guided walkthrough of everything so they don't get lost in the environment. This is just a sneak peek of some of the rooms in our learning environment. And so with that, I just want to share a few the value for our learners and then some lessons learned through this experience. We find that it provides a flexible anytime, anywhere learning experience for our learners. It also serves as a virtual wet lab experience. So we want to bridge the gap between transporting our sales reps and teams to the various virtual wet labs. So this serves as a bridge where they can be anywhere and still be able to experience the device and be trained on those. And it can also be used at conference demos, in different workshops and training sessions that we have. It also reduces our long-term training costs, and ultimately it increases engagement. Now, this particular experience that we built has not been fully launched because our device is not fully launched in the US, but I will share some data of some pilots that we've done internally with VR and how we've seen a lot of improvements in engagement. Some lessons learned. The solution, one of the key items to call out is that it should be um, solve specific problems for easier adoption. And there are many factors to consider when going for VR. But like anything, if the cost of making mistakes is high, and there's a lot of other factors, but we considered all this, and that was a big lesson learned. And then it requires efficient project management, because like in this experience, we have so many stakeholders involved in this, and so you have to like juggle a lot of things to be able to get this whole experience done. But we had a great partnership with ELB, and that was an awesome experience. So this is a pilot that I talked about. We see 55% average score improvement in learners' experience of the various pilots that we did, and then some qualitative results. 4 in 5 of our participants prefer using both AR and VR, and we see a general overall net promoter score increase for the experience of the platform. So yeah, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to connect through LinkedIn, or and then we can chat. And with that, I will hand over to Matt.
All right. Thank you, Maxwell. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. All right, and there should be a Docebo admin platform coming across. So the purpose of this part of the presentation is just to give you an idea of like how all of this comes together with the Docebo platform. So the interface that John talked about, the concepts of like what you might want to bring together that Maxwell talked about. Let's take a look at all of those in a Docebo platform now. So as a Docebo admin here, I'm going to go ahead and click on my hamburger menu in the top left hand there. And we have Scenario VR iframed into this particular platform. So we're going to go ahead and log in. And here is that interface that John was showing you. So he's already given you a brief tour of this. I won't go into a ton of details about like how to work this. Like we won't turn it into a training session, but just so you're aware, the two tools do work together. And if you follow the article that that John had as part of his presentation, it will also show you how to get the materials that you produce through this interface directly into your Docebo platform as well. But just so you're aware, the fully functional interface can be brought into the Docebo admin via an iframe, in which case you do get the opportunity to work on all of these different items here within the same interface that you're used to using. Here's an example of one piece of content that ELB provided to be able to do this. Part of the reason I wanted to showcase this is just to show some of those concepts that John had talked about. The fact that you have that timeline, the ability to build events on that, the fact that you can have multiple scenes that link together via navigational buttons. You can load everything onto the screen. You can see the order in which they are added to the platform. You can also take a look and edit any of the items for the materials that you're going to be using. So to give you an idea of some of the things that we've been doing with VR within the platform, John had mentioned the list of 360-degree cameras, things that you can do with those. Well, something that Docebo actually did for an opportunity that we had recently. I'm holding an Insta360 camera right here. For those of you who've never seen one, this is what they look like. And just to have some fun with an opportunity, we actually grabbed a couple of Docebians, took that Insta360, and full disclosure, Docebians, a lot of us are Canadian. So what did we do? Well, of course, we strapped it to somebody who was going to go into a hockey rink. And so using the 360 camera, we were able to produce a little bit of content that looks like this. And so here's the builder. And by the way, some of the advice John gave are things that we wish we'd known in advance, because those are some great pieces of wisdom, because stuff like, yeah, you can see exactly who's filming it, things like that. Those types of considerations are things that you're going to have to start incorporating now that you're not designing in a purely two-dimensional plane. So we built a few little scenarios here that all got linked together. So there's just some interactive and some timed elements to showcase the capabilities of both of them. Again, like John mentioned, you can establish things on a timeline so that you build and layer all of your content. But then once it starts playing, you're able to sort of like see all of that come into fruition. So it's not all there on the screen immediately. It shows up as part of it. So if there's a scenario, in this case, it was to sort of like give a coach an idea of exactly what they would be seeing as their players are participating in a drill, or to teach them a drill. That type of scenario, for lack of a better term, is what we were putting together here. So now that we have gone through a little bit of the creation, a little bit of that concept of the art of what's possible, how does it all then come together? Well, like John mentioned, we can link the platforms together so you can push some of this material directly to the central repository. You can also download and upload the files in various formats, including SCORM 1.2, including SCORM 2004, and including XAPI. And there's definitely advantages to some of that. Like Maxwell mentioned, they're using XAPI to get additional LRS statements out of the or behavioral statements out of the content. And remember, Docebo does come with an LRS. So just to give you an idea of what happens, or how the magic gets presented to the learner, we're going to come back to the admin dashboard here, and I'm going to pop into course management. And what we have here is an example of a course that was built using that exact SCORM file. So that material, that hockey scenario that we just ran through you, it exists here as part of the central repository in the as the SCORM file. And as the admin, I'm going to go ahead and just jump into the learner view so we can take a look at it. And then when we click on it, we are put into the immersive experience. This one is designed to play inline, by the way. So if you're wondering why it's not like full screen, that's a setting that you can use on a SCORM file by SCORM file basis. But when I start playing this, we're going to see the actual content in action. So I can navigate, I can look around, and I can click on that button to launch into the next one. And here we're just going through the immersive learning experience that we have created and designed and updated here within the platform itself, all without having to leave the Docebo tool. All right. Irina, Christy, I think we're getting to about the poll territory. If there's no Q&A that's come in, or any questions that have been asked.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, John. Thank you, Maxwell. Yeah, so we're going to just throw up a quick poll, but at the same time, I am going to look and see what questions we've received and maybe put these out there. We do have a few minutes to answer some questions. So please, if you do have any, feel free to add them into the Q&A panel. And the question on the poll is if you would like to learn more about implementing experiential learning with Docebo via ELB, yes or no. If yes, somebody will reach out to you. They will contact you directly, a real live person, and talk to you. So Matt, thanks so much for showing the live demo there. That was really fun to see the the hockey video. And Maxwell, really interesting to see what you guys have done at Johnson & Johnson. Super engaging and effective training there. So the questions, I know there was a couple in the chat, they got answered. There was also a couple online that got answered. Another one that we had come in is around, and I'll let either John maybe or Maxwell jump in. They might have two different perspectives. What have you found to be the biggest barrier for people when they're getting started or wanting to get started with more immersive type experiential learning, and how, what would you recommend as sort of the best way to overcome those barriers?
I can probably take that one. The biggest barrier is usually understanding or preconceived notions about what immersive learning is, or how it's delivered, or what we have to do. And it's not just you, it's also your management's expectations. Oh, as soon as they hear immersive, oh, VR, we're not doing VR, or something like that. It gets dismissed a lot, and I hear it and see that a lot out there. And so what I see here, I mean, hopefully you've seen from using this, that it's really actually not that complex, and you really don't need VR headsets. The way to get around something like that, or to get rid of those preconceived notions, is just to create a quick prototype, kind of show it, and you can do that. I mean, there's 30-day trial available with this. You can get in very easily. You can use, like I said, AI to create your first scene, so you don't even have to buy a camera, and kind of show that what can be done on there. Kind of get over that hill of those preconceived notions of what immersive learning really is.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Maxwell, did you have anything to add to that in terms of your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like John mentioned, I've also found that finding the right um, training for the solution you're looking for is key. Making sure that it's not just like trying immersive experience because it's an immersive experience. We need to do something, but we are identifying the reasons why. So for example, if it's a muscle memory thing and cost of actually doing the training is high, if someone makes a mistakes, the cost is higher, then this would be a good solution for you. And also, like John said, there are a lot of options. When we started, you had to like do all the 3D stuff for a prototype, and you had to like build everything from scratch. But now we have AI, and there's a lot of options to be able to get things off the ground. And then if you want to scale it, you can go bigger. So I think it's even easier than it was in the past to dip your toes into it.
Yeah. Okay, great. And I had a question for you, Maxwell, which is what's next, I guess, with for Johnson and Johnson in terms of this? Do you have plans to evolve what you're doing or doing new initiatives in this area in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're always, doing new things. And this was our first. We've done a lot of pilots. Our other teams within J&J have done a lot of pilots, and I shared some of those data. And this is a big drive to be able to bring in more of those kinds of content because we've seen the value to our learners, the increase in engagement, and just the overall research showing the value to learners all over. So this is a big drive, using immersive learning experiences in all forms, both the VR and then the AR, to be able to drive, higher engagement, to bring these new tech that learners can experience in our training. So.
Great. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions. So I think that we are able to wrap things up here and give you all back a little bit of extra time before your next meeting, perhaps. So I wanted to thank John and Maxwell both for being here and sharing your expertise, sharing your experience with us today. And to everybody in the audience, thank you so much for joining us, for spending the last 50 minutes or so with us. We really appreciate your time, and we will certainly circulate the recording, as I just saw in the chat. So you'll hear a follow-up from us very shortly. So thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.